For nearly a century, there's been this one book. It's been kind of like a secret handshake passed between the world's highest achievers. It's Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and today we're going to try to unlock its famous formula. So just think about this for a second. What if success wasn't really about luck or being in the right place at the right time? What if it was actually a formula, a repeatable, step-by-step process you could follow to get to your biggest goals? Well, that powerful question is right at the heart of this entire idea. So where did this all come from? The whole thing started with a challenge from Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the richest men in history. He gave a young journalist named Napoleon Hill this absolutely life-changing assignment. Spend the next 20 years interviewing over 500 of the world's greatest titans. We're talking Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller, and find the one secret that connected all of them, a single universal formula for success. But here's the crazy part. Hill claimed that this secret is hidden in plain sight all throughout the book. He mentions it hundreds of times, but he never actually gives it a name. He believed it only kind of reveals itself to those who are truly ready to see it. So how about we go on that search together? Okay, so our first major clue is in the very first story in the book. It's just the perfect illustration of the whole core philosophy. And it's about a man who began with absolutely nothing, except for a single powerful thought. So let me introduce you to Edwin C. Barnes. This guy was consumed by one single burning obsession. He wanted to become a business partner with the great Thomas Edison. The problem? He had no money, no connections, nothing. He literally just showed up at Edison's office looking like a tramp and declared his goal. Now, Edison saw something in his eyes and gave him a menial job, but Barnes never, ever lost sight of his true purpose. He waited, and when his one big chance finally came, selling a new machine nobody else believed in, he grabbed it. And he succeeded so brilliantly that Edison made him his exclusive partner for the next 30 years. Just think about that for a second. Barnes' only real asset, his only starting capital, was an idea. An intangible but completely unwavering purpose. That was the starting point. Everything else followed from that one thought. And that story brings us perfectly to the first foundational pillar of this philosophy, the power of thought. Because according to Hill, every great achievement in history began in the exact same way, not with an action, but with a very specific kind of internal mindset. Now, Hill makes a really crucial distinction here. He says a simple wish is totally useless. I wish I had more money. That gets you nowhere. A burning desire, on the other hand, is a specific, all-consuming obsession that's backed up by a real plan. It's the difference between just hoping for rain and actually going out and building an irrigation system. And crucially, this isn't just wishful thinking. It's a very disciplined process. Hill gives us these 6 steps to turn that abstract desire into something real. And look how specific they are: an exact amount, a definite date, a clear plan. The whole purpose of this ritual is to bypass simple daydreaming and to literally program your subconscious mind to start seeing and seizing the opportunities you'd normally miss. But a desire, no matter how specific it is, needs a catalyst to really ignite it. And that brings us to faith. Hill calls it the head chemist of the mind. It's that absolute conviction that your goal isn't just possible, but that it's actually inevitable. A perfect example of this? The creation of U.S. Steel. A young executive, Charles Schwab, pitched this massive vision to consolidate the entire steel industry to the most powerful financier in the world, J.P. Morgan. He presented it with such unshakable passion and belief that Morgan was just completely sold on the spot. Schwab didn't just share a plan, he literally transmitted his faith. And the result of that single faith-fueled idea? The deal created the world's first billion-dollar corporation. And get this, Schwab's vision alone was valued at $600 million at the time. That is the tangible, real-world power of an idea when it's backed by unshakable faith. Okay, so you've got the internal fire burning, right? You have desire and faith. But how do you actually translate that into the real world? Well, that brings us to pillar 2, the blueprint for action. This is where thought starts to become tangible. Hill makes another critical distinction here. He argues that just knowing a lot of random facts is pretty much worthless. Real power comes from specialized knowledge, knowing specific things that you can organize and apply to achieve a specific goal. And the best part is, you don't even have to possess all that knowledge yourself. This is one of the most famous stories in the book. Henry Ford was on trial, and a lawyer was trying to paint him as being ignorant.
Ford got frustrated, and he finally said something like this, pointing to a row of buttons on his desk. His point was revolutionary. Successful people don't need to know everything. They just need to know how to organize the knowledge of the people who do.
So you have a desire and you have access to specialized knowledge. So what connects them? Imagination. Hill calls this the workshop of the mind. It's that creative space where you take your intangible goal and the raw material of knowledge and you assemble them into something new, a concrete, actionable plan. Of course, a brilliant plan is completely useless without execution. This brings us to the final and maybe the most critical pillar, the unstoppable force. This is where your blueprint meets the friction of the real world and either grinds to a halt or it builds some serious, unstoppable momentum. A huge part of this is a concept that is absolutely central to Hill's entire philosophy, the mastermind. He argued that when two or more minds come together in a spirit of perfect harmony, focused on a single goal, an intangible third mind is created. It's like a shared consciousness, a synergistic force that's way more powerful than any one individual. The lesson is pretty clear. Massive success is never achieved alone. And just look at the sheer scale of this in action. Andrew Carnegie credited his entire fortune to his mastermind group of about 50 specialists. Henry Ford's genius was amplified by his alliance with other great inventors. And then you have Mahatma Gandhi, who, with no money or military, harnessed the harmonized will of 200 million people. So from a small team to a massive movement, the principle is the same. And finally, the engine that drives it all forward. Persistence. This is the grit that keeps you going when your plans fail, and they will fail. Hill tells that famous story of a man named R.U. Darby who quit digging for gold just 3 feet away from a massive vein. Persistence is simply having the guts to not stop when you're 3 feet from gold. Okay, so we've assembled all the clues. We've got the internal mindset, the blueprint for action, and the unstoppable force of execution. Now it's time to put them all together and finally reveal the secret. So we come all the way back to that central question. After studying hundreds of successful people for over 2 decades, what did Napoleon Hill finally conclude was the secret that Andrew Carnegie sent him to find? And here it is. Carnegie's secret isn't one simple ingredient. It's the synthesis. It's the powerful, almost alchemical reaction that happens when all of these forces combine. You start with an intense, burning desire. You back it up with unwavering faith. You turn it into a definite plan. You drive it forward with relentless persistence. And you amplify all of that power with a mastermind alliance. That dynamic combination, that is the formula. The book ends on this powerful note, and it leaves us with the ultimate takeaway, which is a sense of profound personal power. The entire philosophy rests on this one foundational belief. You have absolute control over your thoughts. And since every achievement begins as a thought, that means you are and you have always been in control of your destiny. You are the captain.